Passed an e-bike earlier today on a roadway that was quite busy. I was going about 80 kilometers an hour, and if I had to guess, I thought he was probably traveling at about 60 kilometers an hour. This made me wonder what rules of the road and laws apply to people who are on e-bikes. This is Law with Lacert. Let's talk about that. So in Canada, in order to be an e-bike, you must have working pedals, an electric motor of less than 500 watts, a maximum speed of 32 kilometers an hour, and a maximum weight of 120 kilograms. You also need brakes that will bring you to a complete stop within 9 meters. I suspect the man on his e-bike that I passed this morning had modified it so that it could travel much faster than the maximum speed limit. So if your e-bike meets these specifications, you will not be considered to be a motor vehicle in Ontario, but rather a power-assisted bicycle. Because you're not considered a motor vehicle, this is why you can drive one without a driver's license here in the province, and you can also drive one without having any insurance on it. So keep in mind that if you modify your e-bike such that it has no pedals any longer, or it has an engine larger than the 500-watt limit, your bike may be considered a motorcycle at that point. In addition, if you're exceeding the 32 kilometer an hour speed limit on your e-bike, it's quite possible that you could also be considered to be a motorcycle. If this were to happen, you would be subject to the rules of the road applicable to motorcycles. You would also likely be in violation of the requirement to have a motorcycle license and the requirement to have motorcycle insurance. So given e-bikes are not motor vehicles in Ontario, what rules do the drivers have to follow? Well, here's where things get a little complicated. The basic e-bike rules are set out by the Power Assisted Bicycles regulation passed under the Ontario Highway Traffic Act. These rules include 1. All operators and passengers must be 16 years of age or older. Anyone on the e-bike must be using an approved bicycle or motorcycle helmet. Passengers are only allowed on e-bikes if the bike is designed to carry a passenger. E-bikes are not required to have turn signals, but if you do, you must use them. And if you don't, you have to use appropriate hand signals to indicate you're about to turn. Finally, e-bike drivers are required to follow the rules of the road as they apply to cyclists. So where can you ride your e-bike in the province of Ontario? E-bikes are permitted on all Ontario roads except larger 400 series highways or provincial highways such as the Queen Elizabeth Way. Some local municipalities have passed bylaws restricting the roads that you can drive on, and you should check with your local one to be sure. Don't forget that e-bikes can't be used on sidewalks, bike paths, or bike trails. So there's one other major rule that operators of e-bikes must follow. They must not be impaired by alcohol or drugs while operating their e-bike. Under the Criminal Code of Canada, e-bikes are considered motor vehicles, and if you are impaired while operating one, you will be charged and possibly convicted. Finally, I want to talk about what might happen if you cause an accident or you're injured in an accident while on an e-bike. So let's look at what might happen if you cause an accident and injure somebody else while on your e-bike. If you are operating a motor vehicle such as a motorcycle at the time of the accident, you would have liability coverage under your auto policy. But because in Ontario and most provinces you're not required to have liability coverage or any insurance on your e-bike, you might be exposed personally if you cause serious injuries to someone else. So if you're involved in this situation, you might look to the liability section under your homeowner's policy, but generally speaking, they're not designed to cover any accidents involving motorized vehicles. And if you have automobile insurance and you look to that policy to cover you for your e-bike accident, it likely won't apply either because it's not an automobile. So if I was going to purchase an e-bike, I'd want to talk to my insurance broker and find a policy of insurance that would cover me for liability coverage in the event I was in an accident on my e-bike. Finally, I want to quickly talk about what might happen if you were injured while on your e-bike. Generally speaking, if you're injured while on your e-bike, it would be no different than if you were injured in a similar way while riding your bicycle. Thank you for watching today. I hope you found the information useful. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video.